Charles Atlas was known around the world for his chiseled body, leopard skin trunks, and those catchy advertising slogans. According to his publicist, Charles Atlas was selected by scientists as the absolute masculine ideal. Whether or not he was perfect physically, there is no question Atlas was a perfect symbol of the American dream. A poor immigrant arrives at Ellis Island, vows to make something of himself, becomes famous, and a millionaire many times over. Even today, the name Charles Atlas remains a synonym for strength, determination, and the courage to fight back. It's every young boy's worst nightmare. A day at the beach, a beautiful girl on your arm, and a well-built bully who kicks sand in your face.
You don't have to be a 97-pound weakling and have someone kick sand into your face.
No one does, not even Charles Atlas. But it happened to him, too, until he fought back.
Charles Atlas really was a 97-pound weakling and grew up to be the world's most perfectly developed man.
His search for mighty muscles would change his life and revolutionize the future of physical fitness in America. Charles Atlas, modern-day Hercules. Charles Atlas's real name was Angelo Siciliano. He was born on October 30th, 1893, near the small town of Acre, off the coast of southern Italy. At the age of 10, Angelo and his family emigrated to the United States. They settled down in Brooklyn, New York, living in a cramped apartment on Front Street. Angelo's new neighborhood was a mix of Italian, Jewish, and Irish immigrants. It was a tough area, and Angelo had trouble fitting in. He didn't speak English, and at the age of 15, he really did weigh just 97 pounds. That made him an easy target for local bullies. One severe beating left a lasting impression on him.
He'd gotten beaten by a kid coming home on Halloween night. The kid had a stocking full of ashes, and he beat him so bad it knocked him out for about an hour. And he went to his room, and he cried himself to sleep. But he said before he went to bed, he prayed to God that he said that he'd never let another man hurt him.
But his prayers went unanswered, and the beatings continued. One afternoon, at the age of 16, Angelo brought a girl to the beach at Coney Island. The story now becomes legendary.
We were sitting on the beach on the sand, and suddenly a bully came along, very handsome fellow, a fine physique. He looked at me, and he figured, well, this scrawny guy with a beautiful girl, so he kicked sand in my face. And of course I had to take it. I couldn't get up and fight him. He was too big for me.
Angelo was paralyzed. He knew he had to fight back, but how? One afternoon during a field trip to a local museum, inspiration struck. There, Angelo spotted a statue of Hercules and was fascinated by the Greek hero's magnificent physique. He asked his teacher how Hercules developed so many muscles. The teacher's response, by lifting weights. Immediately, Angelo joined the local YMCA, working out each morning before school. But no matter how many hours he spent at the gym, the exercises failed to give him the body he wanted. And after several months, he still looked nothing like Hercules. Dejected, Angelo made a trip to the zoo. It was where he went to think. And while standing in front of the lion's cage, he made a discovery that would change his life. As he watched a large lion stretching, he noticed the animal's muscles bulging out from underneath its skin. Suddenly, Angelo came to a stunning realization. The lion had not developed his muscles by lifting weights, but, he thought, by pitting one muscle against another. These exercises are known today as isometric exercises, but Angelo did not invent them. Yoga and Tai Chi are two forms of isometric exercises that have been around for centuries, and both share a philosophy that is common to all isometric exercises.
Isometrics is using one part of the body against the other part. In other words, this arm against this arm. This arm resistance, this arm pushes. In other words, this and that. It's just like weightlifting, only you're not using weights.
Angelo developed his own set of isometric exercises and practiced them faithfully every day. He also ran several miles each morning and did hundreds of push-ups, sit-ups, and deep knee bends. Soon he had transformed his physique from skin and bones into chiseled muscle. It was a transformation that was not lost on his friends. One day, while on the beach at Rockaway, one of Angelo's pals jokingly told him, "Hey, Angelo, you look as good as that statue of Atlas on the hotel across the street." Angelo liked the sound of that. The name Atlas symbolized strength and power. It was also much more American sounding than Siciliano, his very Italian last name. And that appealed to a young immigrant eager to succeed in this country. In fact, he had already adopted the nickname Charlie for that very reason. And from that moment on, Angelo Siciliano would forever be known as Charles Atlas. You're watching Charles Atlas on Biography. Atlas continues on Biography. By the age of 21, Charles Atlas had transformed himself from a 97-pound weakling into a hard-bodied muscle man. Atlas was proud of his new body, but he wanted more than the attention of a few local girls. Atlas was hoping his new build would also make him some money. At the time, one of the few professions open to bodybuilders was working as a strongman in vaudeville. And in 1915, Atlas opened his own act at New York's Coney Island. But he was hardly the first person to make money showcasing his muscles.
Though biting off more than he can chew, Nelson bends a horseshoe with his mighty molars. Just think what he could have done to the horse.
For decades, crowds at country fairs and circus sideshows were dazzled by the antics of these muscle men. The strongman circuit produced its share of stars, but the most popular performer of the day was a Prussian immigrant by the name of Eugene Sandow. Sandow performed all the usual feats of strength, but his greatest appeal was his sculpted physique, which he showed off to perfection with cleverly orchestrated lighting. Sandow's act helped jumpstart a growing trend on the strongman circuit, showcasing the body not only for power, but also for beauty and symmetry. This trend mirrored a shift in society's attitudes toward the ideal male body, a shift that was evident in the pages of several leading magazines.
Well, in the later 19th century, if you're male, one of the real signs of prosperity and success is to be round. By the turn of the century, for men, that begins to change toward a more lean and sleek profile. Beards disappear. Ideal men are perceived as being smooth-shaven. And there's a further evolution in the 20s to a body shape that is more triangular, with the shoulders being the broad part of the triangle, shaped to a slimmer waist and strong legs and thighs.
Charles Atlas fit this new ideal to a T. He was 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed 180 pounds. His chest was 47 inches around, his waist 32 inches, his biceps 17 inches, and his calves 16¼ inches. And with those dimensions, he didn't go unnoticed for long.
It was at the beach, a man was following me around, and he said to me, "I'm an artist, I'm just admiring your figure." He told me that I was a blend of Apollo and Hercules, all put into one.
The young artist brought Atlas to the studio of noted sculptor Arthur Lee, who persuaded Atlas to pose for him. Lee was so impressed with the young man's build, he introduced Charles to Gertrude Payne Whitney, a doyenne of New York society and a noted sculptor in her own right. Whitney took one look at Atlas and declared, "He's a knockout." Soon, Atlas was earning $100 a week as the most popular model in New York, and during the next several years, he posed for more than 40 sculptures. In including the body of George Washington in New York's Washington Square Park and the Dawn of Glory statue in Brooklyn's Prospect Park.
When you look at him, he's the perfect body symmetrically. He's absolutely perfect. And I think he embodies the sort of the Greek classic ideal that we see in Michelangelo's David, for instance. It's a total physical perfection.
It was clear to Atlas that his future somehow lay in his finely tuned physique, and in 1921 he entered the world's most handsome man contest. It was sponsored by Bernard McFadden, a leading physical fitness advocate and publisher of Physical Culture magazine.
There's a real effort in particularly Bernard McFadden's magazine, Physical Culture, to show the body as a work of art as well as a symbol of health. In the magazine itself, there are depictions of people in tight-fitting clothing, tights or singlets for men. And clearly there's an attempt to portray the body as a work of art.
Atlas sent a photograph of himself to the magazine. Several months later, he was declared the winner. The first prize, $1,000. It was more money than he had ever made. The following year, McFadden sponsored another contest to crown the world's most perfectly developed man. This time, the contest was held before a live audience. 750 hopefuls crowded into New York's Madison Square Garden, and after several days of competition, Charles Atlas was once again declared the winner.
And these are the best of the best of the best of, I guess, America's bodybuilding culture at that time. Came to New York for this contest. It was a massive sort of thing. And Mr. Atlas won the contest hands down. Mr. McFadden had had this contest going on for 20 years. And after Mr. Atlas won it the second year, he said, well, we're not going to have it again. Atlas will win it every year.
As his prize, Atlas was offered the choice between a screen test for the movie Tarzan or $1,000. But Atlas wasn't interested in Hollywood. He wanted to go into business for himself, so he took the money. And during the next few months, he drafted a physical fitness course that was based on the group of isometric exercises he had done for years. Charles also added other cross-training exercises to his regimen: deep knee bends, leg lifts, even calf stretches. He sold the course through the mail for $5, and its biggest selling point was that all of these exercises did not require even a single piece of equipment. In fact, Atlas's course was unique for the time. His competitors' courses all required the use of barbells, rings, or other apparatus. And by the 1920s, Americans were crazy about machines that promised a fast and easy way to get into shape.
Will this make me gorgeous? This will make your arms, back, and shoulders. Beautiful. That's wonderful. All right, tickle.
There's a stream of belief in American physical education that believed you didn't have to really make your muscles move you, but you could become fit if something else moved you. So you have these amazing machines with canvas belts that vibrate people and vibrate their flesh. And the idea was that this was going to help them reduce.
Well, how do you like it? Oh, great.
But Atlas knew there was no such thing as a quick fix. Getting into shape his way required hard work and discipline, and he presented himself as the perfect example of that. If it worked for him, it could work for others.
In essence, what Charles Atlas was selling, if you will, was hope. And I think the bottom line of all of that, and if you speak with anyone, from Arnold to anyone in the fitness industry, it's about presenting or selling or offering, here is hope. Hope to feel good about yourself. Hope to have pride in yourself.
It worked on the psychology of the young kids, and it drew you in. And it asked simply the question, do you feel puny? Do you feel sometimes helpless and weak? And every kid says, yeah.
But Atlas knew building a better body took more than simply exercise, so he offered more than just a workout. Instead, he promoted a way of life. He even told his students what foods they should eat.
One of the blessings of American life is the easy access to a well-stocked table. Probably nowhere in the world do people eat as well or as much.
At At the time, most Americans ate meals that were high in fat, bacon and eggs for breakfast, and fatty meat smothered in rich, creamy sauces for dinner. Atlas suggested eating low-fat foods, lean cuts of meat, and plenty of fruits and vegetables. He also included tips on how to develop a strong moral character. In Lesson 1, Atlas urged students to ignore all idle gossip and to have confidence in their opinions and ideas. His advice seemed to catch on. During the first year, Atlas sold more than 2,000 courses. And by the end of his second year in business, he had made enough money to open a gym at 54th Street in New York City. But operating two businesses at once proved to be too much for the ambitious entrepreneur, and by 1928, Atlas had spread himself too thin. That year, he was forced to close down the gym, and the mail-order course, once the backbone of his enterprise, was also floundering. At age 35, Charles Atlas would have to start all over again. Atlas quickly realized he would have to change the way he did business. From now on, he would focus on a single product, his exercise course. He also realized he was going to need some help in running that business. So in 1928, Atlas approached advertising copywriter Charles Roman.
Charles Atlas asked me if I wanted to go into business with him, because he didn't want to run the business. He wanted to do the exercising part and have someone who knew advertising run the business for him. So he offered me a partnership, and I was getting only $35 a week at the advertising agency. I didn't have too much to lose, so I took it.
Roman studied the Atlas course in great detail, and his first move as co-owner was to rename the isometric exercises Atlas had done for years. They would now be known as dynamic tension. But Roman quickly realized the best way to sell the Atlas course was to sell Atlas himself. He ran a series of ads in the backs of magazines and comic books targeted at young boys. These ads all featured Atlas wearing just a simple pair of white trunks, the best way to showcase his famous physique. He wrote ad copy to accompany these powerful new images. Copy that was simple and direct. In 7 days, I can make you a man. Hey, Skinny, your ribs are showing. Or, you too can have a body like mine.
Advertisements for his system show him standing up, facing you, full length, often pointing at the reader, telling them that he'll change their life. And so this sort of, it's almost in your face, if you will, attempt to sell his goods worked because it seemed genuine and believable to people.
What makes an ad strong is if you can demonstrate that you can change something. If you can pay money and change something as a result of a particular program or idea, it's very powerful. And Atlas had the promise of change, and the promise was that you could put on these muscles, change your physique, that you could go from being a puny character into a kind of Zeus. And who can resist such an idea?
Few young boys could, and during their first year together, Atlas and Roman sold more than 3,000 courses at $30 apiece.
Where I lived, there was no gyms, and there was no place actually that I could go work out. So I sent away for the course, and just couldn't wait for the first paper that came in for me, and God, I jumped all over it like crazy.
I went to the mailbox every day. It was like, you know, my PF flyer ring, you know, is that getting the Charles Atlas book was the coolest thing going. And I kept it right there, and I followed through it, all those exercises, and look, here I am. Thanks, Charles.
The success of their new ad campaign placed Atlas and his partner on the cutting edge of a new trend in American advertising. By the 1930s, the majority of Americans no longer made their living on the farm. Instead, many worked in white-collar jobs, sitting all day behind a desk. And in the office, image and appearance became more important. In fact, they were now a part of how success in the workplace was measured. Atlas recognized this, so he sold more than a simple exercise course. He also sold a way of life.
If you don't get ahead, it's because you're not eating the right food. You're not physically fit. People snicker at you behind your back. So the only way to get around this, the message Atlas promotes says, is to get fit. Why not? You'll be healthier, and that's what's going to mean success for you. You have more energy. The boss won't point his finger at you, keep you down. You won't look sluggish. It's perfect. It's an advertiser's dream.
But Charles Roman didn't stop there. He took a page from Charles Atlas's own life and created a series of ads that would make the Atlas system the most popular in the world. The ad featured Mac, a 97-pound weakling who visits the beach with a young beauty. While there, Mac gets sand kicked in his face, but is too weak to fight back. Frustrated, Mac gambles a postage stamp on the Charles Atlas course, and in a few weeks he's transformed himself into a mass of muscles. He returns to the beach and triumphantly beats up the bully who had humiliated him. Of course, he also gets the girl.
I don't care who you are. You're sitting at home right now and you close your eyes, you remember that cartoon, that sketch of, hey, there's that skinny guy, and in 7 days, you could have muscles. Man, I'm in, you know? What do I have to do?
In every magazine, as a young kid that you opened up, no matter what magazine it was, if it was just a comic book or anything else, there was Charles Atlas courses being offered, and how to get strong and how the average man can go and get in shape and all this and that. And I always saw him standing like this there and saying, hey, you don't have to be a 97-pound weakling and have someone kick sand into your face.
Young boys all over the world took to heart the cartoon saga of the skinny teenager who triumphs over his tormentor. And by 1937, Charles Atlas had become a worldwide celebrity.
It was one of the first examples of this, that you could create someone who came from very humble origins, who didn't have high political office, who wasn't a great movie star, and just by the power of advertising, turn him into a worldwide figure. And Atlas, in his own curious way, was the Muhammad Ali of his time. He was very, very well known all over the world.
Atlas did it. Charles Atlas did it. And I'm no longer a weak, puny guy. He's got contented corpuscles. His muscles have bustle. I can pick up 2 dames with 1 eye. Atlas did it. Charles Atlas did it. And when he saw the results, he just cried. The only words he could speak were, brother, what a physique. Atlas did it. Atlas did it. Atlas did it. Yes, Atlas did it. And I hope he's satisfied.
By 1937, Atlas and his partner had sold more than 500,000 courses, but they were hardly without competition. George Jowett, considered by many to be the founder of modern weightlifting, also sold an exercise course. In it, he promised students he would add 3 inches to their chest, all for just 25 cents. And strongman Earl Lederman guaranteed to increase his students' biceps by 1 inch and their chest by 2 inches in just 30 days. But Atlas's biggest competitor was Bob Hoffman, owner of the York Barbell Company. And in 1937, Hoffman decided to play hardball. In an interview with reporters, he claimed no one, not even Charles Atlas, could develop a muscular build without the use of weights. Hoffman repeatedly called Atlas a fake and referred to Atlas's dynamic tension exercises as dynamic hooey. He even went so far as to accuse the Atlas Corporation of false advertising. Hoffman's complaints caught the attention of the Federal Trade Commission, prompting an investigation into Atlas and his course. At issue was his famous slogan, "In 7 days, I'll make you a man."
People want quick fixes. And that's why you tell them you can get a good firm buttocks in 7 days. You know, eat here's a 7-day diet and lose 15 pounds, and none of them is possibly true. But one thing is, what these headlines, it encourages people to start.
It said, in 7 days, I'll prove to you that you can be a new man. You'll start seeing results at the end of 7 days. Now, that can vary with the individual, but the average fellow, if he really follows the first lesson, at the end of 7 days, he will notice an improvement in his biceps and his chest muscles, his pectoral muscles. And so that it was really a truism, and I could say it with impunity.
And the FTC agreed. They found no evidence of false advertising or unfair trading practices, and Atlas was cleared of all charges. His victory on Capitol Hill only seemed to reinforce his already squeaky clean image. For years, Atlas had touted clean living. No drinking, no smoking, healthy eating, and most importantly, daily exercise. And that's exactly how he lived.
The overriding element which governs the whole Charles Atlas myth is that it was simple and direct and not something that you could criticize. He never got caught in a scandal. He did everything right. And it wasn't too hard in that era to figure out what right was.
Atlas's personal life was also beyond reproach. In 1918, he had married Margaret Cassano, a woman he met while working on Coney Island. A devout Catholic, Atlas took his marriage vows seriously, and for the last 20 years, he and Margaret had lived quietly in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Together, they had 2 children, Charles Jr. and Diana. The Atlas children and their mother all did their dynamic tension exercises faithfully each day. In fact, Margaret Atlas was said to be her husband's biggest supporter, in more ways than one.
She did exercise as well. She was a pretty strong woman. She could lift Charles Atlas up, and he weighed 180 pounds. She was totally devoted to being a good mother and wife. And that was her main thing in life. And when I'd go to their home, she'd prepare a big Italian dinner for me.
Despite Charles's wealth, the Atlases lived quite modestly. Their one extravagance was a small vacation home on Point Lookout, Long Island. Atlas loved the beach at Point Lookout, and he spent many happy weekends near the ocean with his family by his side.
He seems to have had a rock-ribbed sense of family value, and I think that was one of the great appeals of Charles Atlas. He loved his family and dwelt on them and really prided himself in being a good father and being close to them.
By age 46, Charles Atlas had a loving wife and family, a successful business, and international fame. And during the next 10 years, he would do anything to keep his name and body in the headlines.
For the web's best bios, log on to our website at biography.com.
Biography.
Charles Atlas says, "You too can have a body like mine. My free book tells you how."
Throughout the 1940s and 50s, the Charles Atlas course was the most popular exercise course on the market. That phenomenal success was due in large part to Atlas's brilliant ad campaign. And with the advent of television in the 1950s, Atlas and his partner brought that genius to the small screen. The course and the advice were the same. It was the setting that was different.
No girl, Jimmy? No, girls laugh at me because I'm skinny.
Do what I did. Send for the Charles Atlas book. It explains how in your own room, dynamic tension can add inches to your physique in just 15 minutes a day. Yes, it's true. Charles Atlas can make a real man of you. Write for free book to Charles Atlas, TV, 3 Dean Street, London, W1.
Despite the success of ads like that, it was Charles Atlas who remained the company's best spokesperson, and he was rarely out of the public eye. In a 1939 publicity stunt, Atlas pulled a 145,000-pound railroad car more than 100 feet down the track. On another occasion, he delighted thousands of inmates at the Sing Sing prison by bending an iron bar in half. His appearance was immortalized in the catchy headline, "Man breaks iron bar at Sing Sing, prisoners cheer, no one escapes." Charles was even a guest on the popular TV show, I've Got a Secret.
How old are you, Mr. Atlas?
I'm 63 years old, Terry.
Well, how do you go about this? I know the system is called dynamic tension.
That's right, Gary. It's the most simple way of training in the world. It's if you're 10 years old, you could do it, and if you're 90 years old, you could do it, and if you're a man or woman, you could do it. Very simple. It's what we call pitting each muscle against the other. It's resistant dynamic tension.
Just turn on this way. That's the point. Yeah.
You place the resistance of one arm to the other, and you pull. See? Up, down, up, down. And you do the same thing with the other arm.
This one's stronger. I can't get this one up.
At age 63, Atlas still had the body, but after 27 years together, it was his partner, Charles Roman, who still called the shots.
Charles Atlas's life was really run by Charles Roman, and I think that Charles Roman was a kind of genius because he created this character that went worldwide and seemed to appeal perfectly to everyone in the world. And I think that Atlas's personal life was kind of kept to the side while Roman developed these stories about him and had him arranged events for him to appear in.
And wherever he went, judging a beauty contest, even attending President Roosevelt's birthday party, Charles Atlas appeared more often than not naked from the waist up.
Mr. Atlas was, in a sense, selling himself and he was showing the world that he's for real. I mean, a lot of these people, they would retouch photographs, they would do other things, make these outrageous claims. Mr. Atlas was constantly wanting to show people that he was for real. And in doing that, he had to show what he was selling was himself and his body, his physique.
Atlas's famous physique even made a customer out of the U.S. government. During World War II, thousands of American men were rejected by the Army for being physically unfit. After hearing that, Atlas shouted to reporters, "Why in the hell didn't the United States government do something about this years ago?" So Charles stepped in, demonstrating his dynamic tension system at Army and Coast Guard training centers around the country.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
What are we going to be, a nation of weaklings? This new generation, as they come up, they are our next presidents, congressmen, lawyers, judges, our citizens. We don't want to be a nation of weaklings.
Atlas was a genius at picking up on Americans' sense of weakness and their senses of vulnerability. He was like a lot of other sharp people in the advertising world who figured out a way to sell goods was to appeal to those things that frightened us a little bit. And he was also an exemplar of the efficient and healthy life without even the slightest tinge of it being anything other than becoming healthy and fit for your service to other people and to the United States.
By 1950, Charles Atlas had nearly 1 million pupils worldwide. The Atlas course had been translated into 7 languages, and his ads appeared in more than 400 comic books and magazines from Iceland to New Zealand. He counted among his students several celebrities, including boxing sensation Joe Louis, Robert Ripley from Ripley's Believe It or Not, and baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. But the majority of his clients were the scrawny small-town boys who wrote to him from all over the world, and their hard work and dedication did not go unnoticed. 4 times a year, Atlas presented the Atlas Trophy to the most improved student. In 1948, that honor went to Tom Manfrey.
It was unbelievable. I didn't think this was happening. I really didn't. It's something you aim for and you get, and you say, am I here yet? Am I dreaming? Is this it? And it was. But he kept plugging me all the way. He gave me the confidence you would not believe. Confidence all the way.
With the confidence he gained from his Atlas course, Manfrey embarked on his own career in bodybuilding, winning the Mr. World title in 1953.
And he was the first one I called up, and he says to me over the phone, I already heard about it. I said, where did you hear about this? Somebody called me up. He said, he's been keeping tabs on me all the while. It was like a father-son relationship, believe me. He was such a hell of a guy.
Manfrey wasn't the only student who felt that way. Charles received so many letters each year that he employed close to 30 women whose main responsibility was to open and sort his mail. Charles got letters from such faraway places as India, Africa, and the Philippines, but each time their message was the same.
They all have the complaint that they are so skinny, like scarecrow. It affected me emotionally. I wish I could send them free the course. Yeah, it's very emotional. And we used to get a lot of letters from very poor countries, say that they are so skinny, they don't have any muscles, and the kids take advantage of them.
And Charles Atlas was there to help.
Let me teach you how to become strong, like this.
Atlas religiously followed his own advice, even at age 68. He began his day with 25 minutes of exercise. And he still spent every afternoon at the office answering his mail and receiving visitors. On the rare occasion that Atlas and his wife did go out, they had dinner at the famous El Morocco nightclub in New York City. Atlas spent the evening nursing a glass of milk and trying to talk the other patrons out of drinking alcohol.
He said that there's 3 things that I don't do. He said, I don't drink, and I don't smoke, and I don't go to burlesque shows. He said, the only thing you leave with from a burlesque show are germs.
Atlas's approach to health and fitness kept him in great shape, and it inspired millions of young boys to do the same. But the business of bodybuilding was changing, and at age 70, Charles Atlas no longer dominated the industry. For more than 30 years, Charles Atlas was the strongest force in the physical fitness industry. But by 1965, he no longer had the field to himself.
And now, here is the man who will show you how to feel better, look better, and live longer, Jack LaLanne.
Good morning and a happy Friday morning to you. Keep the dial right where it is, because this can be the most important day of your life.
5 mornings a week, Jack LaLanne was beamed into living rooms across the country, urging Americans to get off the couch and get fit.
Touch your right foot first. Ready? Begin. 1, 2, 3.
But he did more than demonstrate the proper technique of deep knee bends and toe touches. LaLanne also used the popular show to sell his own line of exercise equipment and vitamins.
I would like to have each and every one of you try the new improved Vitalane All Natural. Here is a wonderful mineral and vitamin supplement for you and every member of your family.
Canadian Joe Weider also perfected the art of cross-promotion. Weider published several health and fitness magazines, including Your Physique and Muscle Builder. And he used the pages of his publications to sell everything from nutritional supplements to Weider barbells. But Atlas's mind wasn't on the competition. He was distracted by the sudden news that his beloved wife, Margaret, had been diagnosed with cancer. In the spring of 1965, she underwent an operation to remove a tumor. But doctors were unable to save her. Margaret Atlas died on April 7, 1965, after 47 years of marriage. Following her death, Atlas went into a deep depression. He had long talks with his parish priest and even considered joining a monastery.
And the priest said, Charles, that's not for you. Your mission or purpose in life are those kids, the kids that write to you. And Mr. Atlas said after he thought about that a lot, he said, yeah, I guess I really do have an obligation. You know, I do have something to live for. I have my kids. I have the kids of the world.
So Atlas went back to work, answering letters and dispensing advice on everything from health and fitness to diet and nutrition.
Charles Atlas has always been his own best advertisement for his mail-order course of muscle building. This is true today, even at the age of 69. We asked him about his technique for turning 97-pound weaklings into men.
Exercise is only tensing of a muscle. All of us, once in a while where you're sitting at an office or you get up out of bed in the morning, you clench your fist and you say, it's good to be alive. And what you're doing, you are really exercising. You are doing dynamic tension exercise because you are tensing your muscles and you're giving your muscles the food they need.
His own commitment to exercise never wavered. Every morning he did 50 knee bends, 100 sit-ups, and 300 push-ups. At age 75, his measurements were almost exactly the same as they'd been at age 30.
He said, how would it look if I had a big belly? And I'm telling these students to buy my course and that I can teach you how to be muscular like myself using the method I used. If I had a big pot belly, he said, I won't do that, and he didn't.
In 1970, Atlas sold his half of the business to longtime partner Charles Roman, but he continued on as a consultant. The last 2 years of his life were spent quietly reading his Bible and running on the beach. In 1972, Atlas suffered a mild heart attack. After being released from the hospital, he took a long jog on the beach, but it was too much for even his famous physique. On December 23, 1972, Charles Atlas died at the age of 79. Today, more than 30 million Americans work out, or at least they say they do. In fact, health and fitness has almost become a national obsession. But it's also big business. Exercise videos, high-tech health clubs, workout gear, and nutritional supplements all bring in more than $9 billion a year. And it all started with Charles Atlas.
The whole movement for exercise started with Charles Atlas. Otherwise, there wasn't any such thing. And whether it would have come of itself or not, I don't know. But surely we jump-started the whole thing.
And Atlas was unique. He had no gymnasium, sold no books or barbells. He sold only his course and his famous physique. But what he really sold was hope.
If you can feel strong and you feel good about who you are, you can conquer anything you want in your life. And I think that that's what the Atlas program was all about. It wasn't just, well, I can lift 425 pounds, but I can conquer anything in my life, any challenge that I have, I can do.
The legend of Charles Atlas was crafted by the advertising whiz who appeared in our program, Charles P. Roman. It was Roman who invented Mac, the 97-pound weakling who got sand kicked in his face with humiliating regularity. He also came up with the term dynamic tension and served as president of the Atlas Company for nearly 60 years. 2 months ago, Charles Roman died. He was still following the Charles Atlas program and still in terrific shape until his heart finally gave out at the age of 92. Tomorrow on Biography, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire. They're at it again, hitting them out of the ballparks around the country. Sosa and McGuire, Thursday. For A&E, I'm Harry Smith. Thanks for joining us.
For $14.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-423-1212 or visit our online store at biography.com.
Now, top cops tackle crazy kids on the loose in one of America's most dangerous cities. As a week of LA detectives continues on Investigative Reports, next on A&E.
For the web's best bios, log on to our website at biography.com.
On the next American Justice.